The Pacific Ocean roared beneath the Malibu cliffs, waves exploding against jagged rocks like a furious drumba. "Why here, Isabella?" she asked, her voice shaking, her breath fogged in the cool night air. "Lucas said he wanted to talk. Why are we out here alone?" Behind her, Isabella Monroe smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of painted lips. The wind tangled her golden hair, but her eyes gleamed with venom. "Because this is where he wanted me to end things," Isabella said sweetly. "With you." Sophia's heart stumbled. "What are you talking about? You really don't get it, do you?" Isabella stepped closer, her heels crunching on the gravel path. "Lucas doesn't love you anymore. He pities you." The words sliced through the night. Sophia's stomach tightened around the life inside her. 6 months along, she felt the baby stir, sensing her fear. "That's not true," she whispered. "We've been through everything together. The accident, it changed him. But he's still my husband." Isabella laughed, a sound colder than the sea spray. "Your accident changed everything, all right? You can't even stand Sophia. He needs a woman who can keep up with him, not one who drags him down in a wheelchair." Sophia blinked back tears. "You don't know what love is." "Oh, I know exactly what it is," Isabella said softly. "It's power. And right now I have all of it." A crack of thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the air. Rain began to fall in thin, icy threads, dotting Sophia's trembling hands. The ocean below looked endless, hungry. Sophia tried to move her chair backward, but the wheels caught on a rock. Panic surged through her chest. "Isabella, please, I'm pregnant. Don't do this." For a heartbeat, Isabella's expression softened, then vanished. "You were always so dramatic." She gripped the back of the wheelchair. Sophia gasped, eyes wide. "No, please." "Goodbye, Mrs. Reynolds," Isabella whispered and shoved. The world tilted. The cliffs disappeared. The wind became a scream. Sophia fell, her body weightless, her stomach twisting as gravity pulled her toward the roaring sea. The chair hit first, metal shattering against the rocks. Pain exploded through her body. Salt water filled her lungs. The current dragged her under. Her vision blurred, darkness pressing in. Somewhere inside her, the baby kicked, a desperate spark of life. She clung to it. She had to live. Above, Isabella stared down, mascara streaking through the rain. Then she turned and walked back toward the mansion, her heels echoing against the stone path. The storm swallowed the scene. Waves crashed again and again, until only the sea and the rain remained. Far below, hidden among the rocks, a faint cry rose from the darkness. The sound of a woman still breathing. Rain poured over Malibu through the night, washing away footprints, secrets, and guilt. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the Pacific gray and quiet, as if nothing tragic had ever happened. Inside the Reynolds mansion, Lucas paced the living room, shirt half-buttoned, eyes red. He hadn't slept. The whiskey glass trembled in his hand. Isabella stood by the window, calm, her hair perfectly brushed, as if she hadn't just killed a woman. "They found her wheelchair," Lucas muttered, voice hoarse. "Broken, by the rocks." "Then it's over," Isabella said softly. "You don't have to torture yourself." "She was pregnant, Bella. My child." "Our child," Isabella interrupted, stepping close. "Don't you see? You and I can finally be free now. No pity, no hospitals, no constant reminders of what she lost." Lucas's jaw tightened. He turned away. "You don't understand. She trusted me." Isabella's voice turned sharp. "She was weak, Lucas, and weakness destroys everything it touches." He looked at her, something hollow in his eyes. "If anyone finds out—" "No one will," she said. "Accidents happen on those cliffs all the time." Lightning flashed again somewhere far out to sea, though the rain had stopped. Lucas sank into a chair, staring at the wedding photo on the wall. Sophia smiling, radiant, before the accident, before the chair, before the lies. He swallowed hard. "God help me," he whispered. Meanwhile, miles north, a different storm raged. The Oregon coastline stretched like a scar between forest and sea. The waves here were calmer, their rhythm softer. A beam of light swept the shoreline, a lantern carried by Dr. Liam Carter, local physician and former Navy medic. He often walked after storms, checking for wreckage or stranded animals. That morning, he saw something tangled among driftwood and seaweed, a flash of silver metal, a torn piece of clothing. He ran closer. A woman. Her skin pale as porcelain, lips blue, dark hair matted with sand. One arm still strapped to a twisted piece of the wheelchair. For a moment he thought she was gone. Then, faintly, her chest rose. "Jesus!" Liam dropped to his knees, checking her pulse. Weak, but there. Stay with me, sweetheart. Come on. He tore off his jacket, wrapped it around her, lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, fragile, yet there was something fierce about the way her hand gripped his sleeve, even unconscious. By the time they reached his truck, her eyes flickered open, just for a second. She whispered something he couldn't understand. "What was that?" he asked, leaning close. Her lips trembled. "Don't let them find me." Then she went still again. Back in Malibu, news reporters stood outside the Reynolds mansion. "Authorities continue to search the waters off Point Dume," one said into the camera, "for the missing wife of real estate mogul Lucas Reynolds. Police believe it was a tragic accident." Isabella watched from the balcony, sipping coffee. Lucas stood behind her, his face empty. "Do you think they'll find her?" he asked quietly. Isabella smiled without turning around. "They'll find what they need to find." Far away, in a small cabin near the Oregon cliffs, the woman they thought was dead opened her eyes to the sound of rain, and took her first breath as someone reborn. The sound of rain woke her before the pain did. Slow, rhythmic drops tapped against the roof like a heartbeat. Sophia blinked into dim light, unsure where she was. The ceiling above her wasn't white like a hospital's. It was wooden, rustic, almost comforting. When she tried to move, fire shot through her body. She gasped, instinctively clutching her belly. "Easy," a man's voice said gently. "You're safe." She turned her head. A man stood beside the bed, tall, broad-shouldered, early 30s. His eyes were a calm gray, like the sea after a storm. He held a mug of coffee, steam rising between them. "I'm Dr. Liam Carter," he said softly. "You were found near the cliffs. You're lucky to be alive." Sophia's throat was raw, her voice barely a whisper. "The baby?" he smiled faintly. "Still fighting. Strong heartbeat." Tears spilled before she could stop them. Relief, grief, and disbelief tangled together. "How long?" "2 days," he said. "You were hypothermic. I don't know how you made it this far." Sophia closed her eyes. Fragments came back. The wind, Isabella's hands, the fall, the water swallowing her whole. Her heart raced. "No one can know I'm alive," she murmured. Liam frowned. "Why not? Shouldn't we?" "No," she interrupted, panic flashing. "Please, they'll come for me, for my child." He hesitated, reading the terror in her eyes. Then he nodded. "All right, you're safe here. No one needs to know." Days passed in silence. The storm outside faded, replaced by soft gray mornings and the distant cry of seagulls. Sophia regained fragments of strength. Her legs, bruised and scarred, still wouldn't move. Each failed attempt to stand was another reminder of what she'd lost. Liam became her anchor. He cooked, changed her bandages, and never asked too many questions. When she woke screaming from nightmares, he sat quietly by her bed until she calmed. One afternoon, she asked for a mirror. He hesitated but handed it to her. The reflection hit her like a slap. Pale skin, cracked lips, dark circles, eyes hollowed by betrayal. "I don't even recognize myself," she whispered. "You're alive," Liam said. "That's what matters." She looked at him, voice trembling. "Alive doesn't feel like living." He crouched beside her, his tone steady. "Maybe not yet, but you will. You survived for a reason." That night, as rain fell again, Sophia whispered to her unborn child. "They wanted us gone," she said softly, hand over her belly. "But we're still here, and one day they'll see what they tried to destroy." In Malibu, Lucas stood by the ocean, reporters gone, silence stretching. He stared at the waves where she vanished. Guilt gnawed at him, but Isabella's hand slipped into his, cold and controlling. "Let her go," Isabella murmured. "The dead don't come back." Lucas closed his eyes, unaware that far to the north, the woman he'd betrayed was learning to breathe again. And in that breath, something new was born. Not just survival, but the beginning of revenge. Morning light spilled through the cabin's window, soft and golden. The air smelled like coffee and sea salt. Sophia sat propped against a pile of pillows, staring at the ocean through the open curtains. The waves were calmer here than in Malibu, yet every crash against the rocks made her flinch. Liam entered quietly, carrying a tray. "You need to eat," he said. "Doctor's orders." She tried to smile. "You're the doctor." "Exactly," he replied, setting down the tray. "And I'm very strict." He helped her sit up, moving gently, mindful of her injuries. Her arms trembled with effort. "You shouldn't be doing all this," she said softly. He shrugged. "You saved yourself by surviving. I'm just keeping you alive." Sophia's lips curved faintly, but her eyes were distant. "Sometimes I wish I hadn't." Liam paused, spoon halfway to her mouth. Don't say that. She met his gaze. You don't know what they did to me. His voice softened. Then tell me. For a long moment, the only sound was the ocean. Finally, she whispered, my husband and the woman he was with, they pushed me off that cliff. Liam froze. His jaw tightened, eyes darkening. Jesus. I trusted him, Sophia said, tears rising. I thought he loved me. I thought the baby would change things. But I was wrong. I was just a burden. He reached out, placing his hand over hers. Whoever did that, they don't deserve your tears. She pulled her hand back, shaking. They think I'm dead, and maybe that's good. Let them think that. Liam nodded slowly. All right, you can stay here as long as you need. No one comes around much. Why are you helping me? She asked suddenly. He looked out the window. Because once, someone helped me when I didn't deserve it either. Weeks passed. Sophia regained strength in her upper body, though her legs remained motionless. Liam brought her books, journals, and a small laptop. You can design again, he suggested. Start something new. She hesitated, then began sketching. Houses, furniture, spaces filled with light. It was the first time since the accident she'd felt like herself again. Every night, she read news articles. Lucas Reynolds and Isabella Monroe were everywhere, photographed at galas, charity events, smiling like nothing had ever happened. Real estate's golden couple, the headlines said. Her chest burned with rage. They're living their dream, she whispered. And I'm hiding. Liam looked at her. You're healing. That's not hiding. She turned to him, eyes sharp. Healing isn't enough. He frowned. What are you saying? Sophia stared at the ocean, waves glowing orange under the sunset. They took my body. They tried to take my life. But they didn't take me. Liam watched as her hands clenched in her lap, veins visible under pale skin. Something fierce had returned to her eyes. Not fear, but purpose. That night, she whispered to her unborn child again. You'll grow up knowing the truth, and one day they'll answer for what they did. Outside, the tide rose higher, crashing harder against the cliffs, as if the ocean itself could feel the storm building inside her. For the first time since the fall, Sophia didn't feel broken. She felt alive and dangerous. Rain hammered the Oregon coast for 3 days straight. The small cabin creaked under the wind, but inside, a single lamp glowed beside Sophia's bed. She clutched the edge of a blanket, sweat beading on her forehead. Her breathing came in short, sharp bursts. Liam, she gasped. Something's wrong. He was already there, sleeves rolled up, calm but focused. It's time, Sophia. The baby's coming. Her heart pounded. It's too soon. Not by much, he said, checking her pulse. You're strong enough. Just breathe with me. Pain ripped through her. She gritted her teeth, trying not to scream. Rain lashed the windows, thunder shaking the sky. The whole world felt like it was pushing against her. Hours passed in fragments. Light, darkness, pain, silence. Liam never left her side. He held her hand, whispered encouragement, wiped her tears when she thought she couldn't take another breath. Then, a cry. Tiny, fragile, alive. Sophia collapsed back against the pillow, sobbing as Liam placed the baby on her chest. A small, pink face, eyes squeezed shut, fingers curling weakly around hers. It's a boy, Liam said softly. He's perfect. Sophia's tears fell freely. Noah, she whispered. His name is Noah. Liam smiled. Welcome to the world, Noah. Outside, the storm eased, as if the universe itself exhaled. For hours, Sophia couldn't take her eyes off her son. Every tiny breath reminded her of what she'd survived. But beneath the joy was a shadow. The knowledge that somewhere, Lucas and Isabella lived their lives without guilt, while she hid like a ghost. A week later, she sat by the window, holding Noah close. His heartbeat against her chest was steady, strong. Liam entered quietly, setting down a tray of soup. You're healing fast, he said. She smiled faintly. Because I have a reason now. He looked at her, admiration softening his expression. You're tougher than anyone I've ever met. She shook her head. No, I'm just a mother who refuses to let her son grow up believing monsters win. Liam hesitated. You plan to go back, don't you? Sophia didn't answer. She just kept staring out at the sea. One day, not yet, but I will, he sighed. Revenge doesn't fix everything. Her eyes met his, calm, unflinching. It doesn't have to fix everything. It just has to make things right. That night, when Liam checked on her, he found her asleep with Noah in her arms. A candle burned beside her bed. Next to it lay a torn photograph. Lucas and Sophia on their wedding day, smiling beneath the California sun. She'd folded the picture in half, cutting his face from hers. The wind outside carried the scent of salt and pine through the cracked window. Liam looked at the sleeping woman and the baby beside her. "God help whoever tries to hurt you again," he whispered. In that quiet cabin, a new kind of strength was born, not the fragile hope of survival, but the cold fire of purpose. Three years passed on the Oregon coast, where the sea met the forest in endless gray waves. The seasons changed quietly: spring fog, summer light, fall rain, winter stillness. But inside the small cabin, time moved differently. For Sophia Reynolds, every sunrise was survival. Every night was a promise she whispered to her son. Noah grew fast. By 3, he had his father's dark hair but his mother's bright eyes. He laughed easily, a sound that softened the edges of Sophia's scars. She could move her upper body freely now, though her legs remained weak. Liam built her a new wheelchair, lightweight and strong, designed by her own sketches. "You're better at this than half the engineers I know," he told her one morning as he adjusted the wheels. Sophia smiled faintly. Necessity makes you creative. She ran a small design studio online under the name Sophie Carter. From her cabin, she created interiors for clients she'd never meet, quiet homes full of light and healing spaces. Her work began to attract attention. A few high-end magazines called her designs visionary. No one knew who she really was. At night, when Noah was asleep, Sophia still read the news. Lucas Reynolds' empire had grown. Photos of him and Isabella Monroe filled social media. Charity galas, real estate awards, glossy magazine covers. They were the picture of perfection. Her stomach tightened every time she saw them. "They're untouchable," she whispered once, closing the laptop. Liam, sitting across the table, shook his head. "No one's untouchable. But revenge, it changes people." She looked up. "I'm already changed," he sighed. "You've built something beautiful here, Sophia. Don't burn it down." Sophia reached for Noah's toy car on the table, turning it in her hands. "I won't burn it. I'll rebuild it, on my terms." Her eyes were calm, not angry. That frightened Liam more than rage ever could. Later that week, she took Noah down to the beach. The tide was low, exposing smooth stones and shells. She wheeled her chair along the sand, Noah running ahead with a stick, chasing seagulls. "Mama, are you happy?" he asked suddenly. She hesitated. "Why do you ask?" "Because you smile when you look at me," he said. "But not when you look at the ocean." Sophia's chest ached. "The ocean reminds me of where we came from," she said softly, "and how far we still have to go." That night, she couldn't sleep. The sound of the sea pulled her back to that night. The rain, the wind, Isabella's hands. She dreamed of falling again, the cold swallowing her whole. When she woke, she was trembling. Liam sat by her bed, holding a cup of tea. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Sophia nodded. "It's time." "For what?" She looked at him, eyes steady. "For me to stop hiding." He didn't try to stop her this time. He just said, "Then I guess it's time for me to help you stand." And for the first time in years, Sophia didn't feel like a ghost. She felt like a storm finally ready to rise. The day she decided to return to Los Angeles began like any other. Quiet, gray, and filled with the smell of salt and rain. Sophia sat by the window, Noah drawing with crayons at her feet. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, calm but full of hidden strength. Liam entered with 2 mugs of coffee and paused when he saw the look in her eyes. "You've already decided, haven't you?" he said quietly. Sophia nodded. "I can't stay hidden forever. They think I'm gone, and maybe that's what I need, to let them believe it until I'm ready." Liam set the mugs down, folding his arms. "Ready for what? Closure or war?" "Justice," she said. "They stole my life. My son deserves to know his mother didn't let monsters win." He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Then you'll need more than courage, Sophia. You'll need a plan." For weeks she prepared. She worked with her rehabilitation therapist in town, slowly regaining strength in her legs. Every small movement burned, but she refused to quit. Liam ordered custom braces to help her stand. The first time she took a step, shaky but real, tears filled her eyes. Noah clapped his hands. "Mama, you're walking." She laughed through her tears. "Just a little baby, but it's a start." By the end of the month, she could move across the cabin on her own. Her balance was weak, but her will was iron. She spent nights designing again, sketching interiors for Los Angeles penthouses, slowly reintroducing herself to the world through her work. She rebranded under her real name, Sophia Reynolds Interiors. The internet buzzed. Old clients reached out. A new investor requested a meeting in Los Angeles for a massive design project tied to a luxury hotel chain, one owned by none other than Reynolds Holdings. Sophia stared at the email, heart pounding. Fate had opened the door. Liam read it over her shoulder. "If you go back," he said softly, "you can't be half in. You'll be walking straight into their world again." Sophia looked up at him, eyes steady. "That's exactly where I need to be." 2 weeks later, she packed their things. Oregon disappeared behind her in the rearview mirror as she drove south, Noah asleep in the back seat, his small hand clutching his toy car. Los Angeles greeted her with sun, noise, and memories that clawed at her heart. Every corner of the city whispered her past: the hospital, the penthouse, the cliffs of Malibu where she had died once. She checked into a quiet apartment downtown. From the window, the city lights spread like stars. She stood there, brace hidden beneath her skirt, hand trembling slightly. Liam's voice echoed in her mind. "Revenge doesn't fix everything. Maybe not, but truth would." Sophia touched the locket around her neck. Inside, a photo of baby Noah and a small seashell from the Oregon shore. Tomorrow, she would walk back into Lucas Reynolds' world, not as his broken wife, but as the woman who came back from the dead. The lobby of the Reynolds Holdings headquarters gleamed like a cathedral of glass and marble. Everything about it screamed power. Polished floors, walls lined with abstract art, and the faint scent of expensive cologne that reminded Sophia of a life she'd buried. She paused just beyond the revolving doors, her pulse quick and shallow. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored wall. Dark, tailored suit, subtle makeup, hair pinned neatly. No wheelchair, no trembling hands. She had spent 3 years learning to walk again, and though every step still burned, she moved with purpose. "Miss Reynolds?" The receptionist smiled politely. "The board is waiting upstairs. May I say, you look familiar." Sophia's lips curved slightly. "I get that a lot." Inside the elevator, she pressed the button for the 40th floor. Her hands shook just once before she forced them still. The soft music couldn't drown out the rush of memories. The accident, the betrayal, the fall. Each second was a blade twisting in her chest. When the doors opened, she stepped into the boardroom. Lucas Reynolds sat at the head of the table. Older, sharper, but still unmistakably him. His navy suit fit perfectly. His confidence filled the room. And beside him, laughing softly, was Isabella Monroe, her long blonde hair cascading like sunlight over her shoulders. For one moment, the world froze. Lucas looked up. "Miss Carter," he said, rising to shake her hand. "Pleasure to finally meet the designer everyone's been talking about." His touch sent a jolt through her, cold recognition, but his eyes held no spark of memory. He didn't know. "Thank you, Mr. Reynolds," she replied, voice steady. "It's an honor." Isabella turned, still smiling. "Lucas has told me so much about your work. You're even more impressive in person." Sophia met her gaze. "You flatter easily." Their eyes locked, two predators circling the same memory. For the briefest moment, Isabella's smile faltered. Then she blinked and turned away. The meeting began. Sophia presented her designs. Sleek, modern, understated elegance. Her voice was calm, her gestures precise. No one would have guessed that the woman standing there was the ghost of their past. Lucas leaned forward, impressed. "You have a unique vision. I like that." Sophia smiled faintly. "Pain gives clarity. You learn what truly matters." Isabella shifted in her chair. "And what matters to you, Miss Carter?" Sophia's eyes met hers. "Truth." A chill spread through the room. The silence stretched before Lucas cleared his throat. "We'll be in touch. Expect a formal offer by next week." She thanked them, gathered her portfolio, and walked toward the elevator. The moment the doors closed, her breath shook free. Her hands trembled, but her heart felt strangely calm. She had looked her demons in the eye, and they hadn't recognized her. Downstairs, reporters swarmed the lobby, chasing headlines about Lucas Reynolds' latest venture. Sophia slipped past them unnoticed, her heels clicking against marble. Outside, Los Angeles sunlight burned against her face. She looked up at the skyscraper and whispered, "Round 1." For the first time since the fall, Sophia smiled, because now the game had truly begun. Los Angeles at night glittered like temptation itself. glass towers glowing against the dark sky, promises and lies reflected in every window. Sophia drove through the city in silence, her fingers gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. Her mind replayed every glance, every word from that meeting. Lucas had looked straight at her and hadn't seen the woman he'd left for dead. That was power, and she would use it. Back in her apartment, she set her laptop on the table and opened a folder marked Project Redemption. Dozens of files filled the screen: blueprints, financial records, board member profiles, and, most importantly, links between Reynolds Holdings and illegal real estate transfers. Liam had helped her trace them quietly over the years, using contacts he still had in the Navy's financial division. "Let's see what secrets you've been hiding, Lucas," she whispered. At dawn, she called Liam. He answered groggily, his voice thick with sleep. "You're supposed to rest, not hack corporations." "I'm not hacking," she said calmly. "I'm analyzing." He sighed. "Sophia." "I met them," she interrupted. "Both of them." Silence. "Then how did it feel?" "Like standing on my own grave," she admitted. "But they didn't recognize me, and that's exactly what I needed." He hesitated. "Be careful. The closer you get, the more dangerous it becomes." She smiled faintly. "Danger doesn't scare me anymore." For the next few weeks, Sophia buried herself in the project. She designed for Reynolds Holdings during the day, impeccable, admired, untouchable. At night, she peeled back layers of their corruption. Each discovery fed the fire inside her. One evening, she attended a charity gala hosted by the company. Cameras flashed as Lucas and Isabella posed on the red carpet, flawless and fake. Sophia arrived later, in a black gown that shimmered like liquid glass. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. "Who's that?" one reporter whispered. "Some designer." "She's the one Lucas hired," another replied. Inside, crystal chandeliers bathed the ballroom in gold. The band played soft jazz. Isabella spotted her first. "Miss Carter," she greeted, voice honeyed but tense. "You clean up beautifully." "So do murderers," Sophia thought, but only smiled. "So do you." Lucas approached, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "To new beginnings," he said, offering her one. Their eyes met. He didn't know it, but she did. Every lie, every betrayal, every signature he'd forged to protect Isabella. "To truth," Sophia said, clinking her glass against his. Across the room, Isabella watched them, unease tightening her smile. Something about the woman's eyes felt familiar, haunting. Sophia excused herself and stepped out onto the terrace. The city lights stretched endlessly below, the same city that had once celebrated her death. She closed her eyes and whispered to the wind, "You took everything from me, Lucas. Now I'll take everything from you." Behind her, the ballroom doors opened. Lucas's voice drifted through the air. "There you are, Miss Carter. I was hoping you wouldn't disappear on me." Sophia turned, her face serene, her heart steel. The man who thought she was gone had just invited her back into his world. And he had no idea she came bearing his destruction. The following week, Lucas Reynolds invited Sophia to dinner. The email was polite, professional, to discuss creative direction, but Sophia knew better. Lucas never mixed business with intimacy unless he wanted control. She accepted. The restaurant he chose was one of Malibu's finest, perched high above the same coastline that had once almost claimed her life. The irony made her stomach twist, but she smiled through it. When she arrived, the hostess led her to a private balcony overlooking the ocean. The sunset burned red across the horizon, the waves glinting like liquid fire. Lucas stood when he saw her, his charm effortless. "You're early," he said, pulling out her chair. "I like to see the view before it gets dark," she replied. He smiled. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Sophia met his gaze. "It's deadly," he chuckled softly, not catching the weight of her words. "You have a dark sense of humor, Miss Spy Carter." "Comes from experience," she said, sipping water. They ordered. The air was thick with tension disguised as civility. Lucas asked about her designs, her life, her inspiration. He was curious, but not suspicious, yet. Sophia gave just enough truth to make the lies believable. "I spent some years on the Oregon coast," she said. "Needed time to heal." "Heal?" he repeated, leaning in. "From what?" Sophia smiled faintly. "A bad fall." Lucas froze, the stem of his glass trembling slightly in his hand. For a fraction of a second, his mask slipped, then he laughed it off. "I see. Well, you've certainly recovered beautifully." She tilted her head. "Some scars don't fade. You just learn to live with them." They ate in silence for a while, the waves crashing below. Then Lucas leaned back, studying her. You remind me of someone, he said. Someone I used to know. Someone you lost, she asked softly. His eyes darkened. Yes, my wife. She died. A long time ago. Sophia swallowed hard. I'm sorry for your loss. He looked out toward the ocean. I loved her once, but life moves on. Sophia's nails dug into her palm beneath the tablecloth. Life moves on. Those were the words he had said to the press after her accident. Did you ever find peace? She asked. He shrugged. Peace is overrated. Success fills the silence better. She smiled coldly, until the silence started speaking back. He frowned, confused. What do you mean? Sophia set her glass down, her expression unreadable. Nothing, just a thought. When dinner ended, Lucas walked her to her car. I'd like to continue working closely with you, he said. You're intriguing. Sophia met his eyes. Be careful, Mr. Reynolds. Intrigue can be dangerous. As she drove away, the moon rose over the cliffs. She glanced in the rearview mirror at the man still standing there, his silhouette framed by the sea. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. You played God once, she whispered. Now you'll learn what it feels like to face the devil. The man who buried her had no idea she was already digging his grave. Sophia stood before the mirror in her apartment, staring at the woman who stared back. The reflection looked flawless. Sleek black dress, subtle diamond earrings, lips the color of power. But underneath that surface was a storm she could barely contain. Every meeting with Lucas pulled her deeper into the past she swore she had buried. His charm, his tone, even the way he said her name, Miss Carter, all felt like invisible knives, twisting where love used to be. She touched the small scar on her wrist, hidden beneath her bracelet. That scar was real, so was the fire in her chest. You took everything, she whispered. Now I'll take your truth. Her phone buzzed, a message from Liam. Still safe? She typed back, yes, it's working. He replied, remember who you are. Don't lose yourself in this. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then put the phone down. Too late, she murmured. Later that morning, she drove to the Reynolds estate in Beverly Hills. Lucas had invited her for a planning session with Isabella. The gate guards waved her through, unaware the woman behind the wheel was the ghost of the house's former mistress. The mansion looked the same, white columns, glass walls, manicured lawns, but something inside her recoiled at every step she took up the marble path. Memories slammed into her, the laughter, the dinners, the night she told Lucas she was pregnant. The way his face had fallen when she said she wanted to slow down, focus on family. He had never wanted stillness, he had wanted power. The front door opened. Isabella stood there, stunning as ever, wearing silk and poison. Miss Carter, she greeted smoothly. Welcome back to the house that ambition built. Sophia smiled politely. Beautiful as ever. Of course, Isabella said, leading her inside. Lucas is in the study. He'll join us shortly. As they walked through the hall, Sophia's gaze fell on the framed photos, Lucas and Isabella at galas, on yachts, on magazine covers, the image of a perfect life built on her grave. In the study, Isabella poured wine. You and Lucas seem to have chemistry, she said casually, offering a glass. Sophia took it, her hand steady. We understand each other. Isabella's smile didn't reach her eyes. Careful, dear. My husband can be quite persuasive. Sophia's heart skipped. My husband. She forced a small laugh. I can handle persuasive men. Lucas entered then, his presence filling the room like static. Ladies, he said, glancing between them. Let's get started. Sophia sat across from them, every muscle tight. As they discussed contracts and timelines, she memorized every detail. The hesitation in Isabella's voice when their eyes met, the faint edge of guilt in Lucas's tone. When the meeting ended, Lucas walked her to the door. You look familiar, he said suddenly, brow furrowing. Sophia's pulse raced, but her smile didn't falter. Maybe in another life, she said. As the door closed behind her, Isabella stood at the top of the stairs, watching. Her fingers clenched around the wine glass until it cracked. For the first time, Isabella felt something she hadn't in years. Fear. That night, the past came knocking. Sophia was sorting through design sketches when her doorbell rang. She froze. No one knew this address except Liam. Carefully, she wheeled toward the door and opened it. Standing there was a face she hadn't seen in years, older, worn, but unmistakable. Martha? The woman's eyes filled with tears. Oh, Miss Sophia, it really is you. Sophia's throat tightened. The last time she'd seen Martha, the loyal housekeeper had been screaming her name from the cliffside. helpless. "How did you find me?" Martha stepped inside, clutching her purse. "I never stopped looking. I knew you didn't just fall, not like they said. That woman, Isabella, she's pure evil." Sophia guided her to the sofa. "Sit. Tell me everything." For the next hour, Martha spoke, her voice trembling. She told Sophia how Lucas and Isabella had spun the perfect lie, a tragic accident, a grieving husband, a pregnant wife lost to the sea. They held a grand funeral, cameras, tears, flowers. Lucas gave speeches about enduring love. Then, months later, Isabella moved into the mansion. "They said you were a memory," Martha whispered. "But I saw the truth that night. I heard her scream, Miss Sophia. You begged for help. I was too far." Sophia's hands shook. "You tried," she said softly. "That's more than anyone else did." Martha opened her bag and pulled out a small flash drive. "This was from the security camera that night, the one by the terrace. I kept it. I didn't know what to do, but I knew someday it'd matter." Sophia stared at it as if it were holy. "You kept proof?" Martha nodded. "You can see her push the chair. The angle's not perfect, but it's clear enough." Sophia's chest rose and fell fast. "My God, this changes everything." Martha's hand trembled as she covered Sophia's. "Be careful, sweetheart. Those people are monsters. Lucas may have been blind, but Isabella, she's dangerous." Sophia squeezed her hand. "I'm not afraid of her anymore." When Martha left, Sophia sat in silence, staring at the flash drive. It glowed faintly under the lamplight like a small piece of justice. Her phone buzzed. Liam's name lit up. She answered. "I have proof," she said. "Video proof." There was a pause. "Sophia, listen to me. Don't move too fast. That kind of evidence makes people desperate. They'll come for you." "I hope they do," she said, "because this time I won't be the one falling." After she hung up, Sophia inserted the drive into her laptop. The video was grainy, the timestamp flickering, but there it was. Isabella behind her wheelchair, the shove, the fall, the blur of white fabric tumbling into darkness. Sophia watched in silence, tears sliding down her cheeks. She whispered to the screen, "You buried me once. Let's see how you survive being exposed." Outside, thunder rolled across the Hollywood hills. The storm that began years ago was returning. For the first time, Sophia had proof and a reason to make the whole world watch. The morning sun poured through the massive windows of the Reynolds mansion, gilding everything it touched: marble floors, crystal vases, and the hollow souls of those who lived there. Isabella Monroe Reynolds stood before the mirror, fixing her lipstick with practiced precision. Behind her, Lucas adjusted his tie. They looked perfect, but perfection had begun to rot. Lucas's phone buzzed. Another anonymous message. He frowned. "How does it feel to live with a ghost?" There was no name, just a link. He deleted it before Isabella could see. "You're quiet," she said, watching him in the mirror. "Something wrong?" "Nothing," he muttered. "Just business." "Business?" She turned, narrowing her eyes. "You've been distracted for weeks. Don't tell me you're suddenly growing a conscience," he snapped. "Don't start." Her lips curved in a sharp smile. "Touchy, aren't we?" He glared at her. "Maybe it's because I'm tired of pretending. You wanted this life, remember? The houses, the cameras, the lies. Congratulations, we're drowning in them." Her expression hardened. "You wouldn't have it any other way. Without me, you'd still be a nobody with a crippled wife in a wheelchair." Lucas froze, anger flashing in his eyes. "Don't talk about her." "Why not?" Isabella stepped closer. "She's gone, Lucas. You can't resurrect the dead." He turned away, his jaw clenched, but her words lingered like smoke. Meanwhile, across town, Sophia sat in her apartment, watching the morning news. A headline flashed: "Lucas and Isabella Reynolds celebrate 5-year anniversary." The anchors smiled, describing them as the city's power couple. Sophia muted the TV, her eyes cold. 5 years, she murmured. 5 years of lies. Martha arrived carrying coffee. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" she asked. Sophia nodded. "They've lived their paradise long enough. Time to break it." She opened her laptop. On screen, the incriminating video played in a loop, Isabella pushing her wheelchair into the abyss. She uploaded a copy to an encrypted drive, then scheduled it for automatic release in 72 hours. If anything happened to her, the world would see everything. Next, she drafted a press invitation. Exclusive interview, Sophia Reynolds speaks after years in hiding. She smiled grimly. Let's see how perfect they look when the truth starts to bleed. That night, Lucas sat alone in his office, swirling a glass of whiskey. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The security lights outside flickered. In his inbox, another anonymous message arrived. A single image of a white wheelchair submerged in dark water. His hands went cold. He ran a shaky hand through his hair. "It can't be," he whispered. "She's dead." From the doorway, Isabella's voice sliced through the tension. "Who's dead?" He turned quickly. "No one. Go to bed." She studied him, suspicion darkening her gaze. Lucas looked out the window, his reflection pale against the glass. Somewhere out there, a ghost was moving, and she was coming for him. For the first time, Lucas Reynolds felt fear, the kind only the living feel when the dead decide to return. The rain came again, washing the streets of Los Angeles with a soft, relentless rhythm. In her dim apartment, Sophia sat at her desk, a single candle flickering beside her. The video evidence rested safely on a hard drive hidden beneath a floorboard, but tonight she wasn't looking at screens. She was writing. The paper trembled beneath her hand. "Dear Liam," she began. "If you're reading this, it means I've gone too far, or not far enough." She paused, staring at the words. The candle flame danced, making the ink glisten like tears. "You once told me revenge changes people. Maybe you were right. Maybe I've already become something else, someone else. But what choice did I have? They didn't just try to kill me, they erased me." Her pen moved faster now, anger and grief spilling across the page. "I see their faces everywhere. In magazines and billboards and people's laughter. They built their empire on my grave, and the world applauds them for it. But I won't stay buried. Not again. This time, I'll decide how the story ends." She stopped, breathing hard. Across the room, Noah slept peacefully, his small chest rising and falling beneath a blanket covered in stars. For him, she told herself. Everything she was doing was for him. But in the quiet, another thought crept in. Was she protecting her son's future, or poisoning it? She folded the letter and sealed it in an envelope, writing to Liam across the front. Then she placed it inside the drawer and locked it. He would find it only if she didn't come back. Later, as thunder rolled outside, she stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker. Every raindrop on the glass looked like a memory she couldn't erase. Her phone buzzed. A message from Liam. "You haven't called in 2 days. Are you all right?" She typed, "I'm fine, just working late," then deleted it. She didn't want him to know what she was about to do. Instead, she texted Martha, "Everything's ready. Tomorrow night." The older woman replied within seconds, "I'll be there." Sophia slipped the phone into her pocket and turned back toward the table. On it lay an old photograph, her and Lucas, smiling under the Malibu sun. She stared at it for a long moment before striking a match and holding it to the edge. The flame caught quickly, curling the image until his face blackened and disappeared. "Goodbye, Lucas," she whispered. "The woman you buried is gone. The one who's coming for you doesn't forgive." When the fire died, she gathered her coat and glanced one last time at Noah. Her voice was barely a breath. "Mommy has to finish something, baby. Then we'll be free." Outside, the storm intensified. Lightning illuminated the skyline, a city unaware that one of its ghosts was preparing to rise. Tomorrow, the world would learn that Sophia Reynolds was no longer a memory. She was the reckoning. The night of the gala arrived with the kind of glamour only Los Angeles could summon. Spotlights sweeping across the Beverly Hilton, champagne towers glistening, and cameras flashing like lightning. The Reynolds Foundation Charity Gala was the event of the year, celebrating success, love, and legacy. It was also the perfect stage for destruction. Sophia watched from her car parked across the street. Her reflection in the rearview mirror looked calm, almost regal. Sleek black gown, emerald earrings, hair cascading in dark waves. No trace of fear, no trace of the woman who once begged for mercy at the edge of a cliff. She checked her phone. A text from Martha flashed on the screen. "We're inside. Everything's ready." Sophia exhaled. Showtime. As she entered the ballroom, the sound of clinking glasses and polite laughter filled the air. Every step she took drew eyes. People whispered, "Who is she?" "She's the designer from Reynolds Holdings. Gorgeous." At the far end of the room stood Lucas and Isabella, the golden couple, smiling for photographers. Lucas wore confidence like a second skin. Isabella sparkled beside him in silver, her hand resting possessively on his chest. When Lucas turned and saw Sophia, the smile faltered. For a split second, confusion crossed his face. Something about her presence unnerved him. "Lucas," Isabella murmured, following his gaze. Who is that? He hesitated. Our designer, Miss Carter. Isabella's grip on his arm tightened. Why does she look at you like that? Sophia moved closer, her heels clicking like a countdown. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, she greeted, voice smooth as silk. Beautiful evening. Thank you, Lucas said, forcing a smile. We're glad you could make it. Her gaze lingered on Isabella. Oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world. The hostess announced dinner, and the guests began to take their seats. As Sophia walked to her table, Martha gave a subtle nod from across the room. The projector had been set, the flash drive inserted. Once the keynote began, truth would speak for itself. Lucas took the stage first, charming as ever. Tonight, he began, we celebrate giving back to the community, honoring the strength that builds families and futures. Sophia's hand trembled under the table, clutching her wineglass. Families and futures. He dared to say those words. Isabella stood beside him, smiling for the cameras, every inch the devoted wife. The lights dimmed for the presentation. The giant screen behind them flickered. Lucas's voice echoed, "At Reynolds Holdings, we believe integrity." Then the video cut. The room went silent. On screen appeared the cliffs of Malibu. Rain, lightning, a woman in a wheelchair. Gasps filled the room as the footage played. Isabella behind Sophia, the shove, the scream, the fall. Isabella's face drained of color. "Turn it off," she shouted. "Turn it off!" But it was too late. The crowd stared in horror. Lucas stood frozen, the microphone slipping from his hand. Sophia rose slowly, every movement deliberate. The whispers turned into a wave. She stepped into the spotlight. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady. "My name isn't Miss Carter. My name is Sophia Reynolds, and I never died." The ballroom erupted into chaos. Gasps turned into screams, flashes exploded as cameras went wild, and every phone in the room began recording. The screen behind Lucas and Isabella froze on the final frame. Sophia's face mid-fall, eyes wide, the moment the world thought she had died. Lucas stumbled back, color draining from his face. "No, this can't be." Isabella's voice cracked like glass. "She's lying. This is fake." Sophia stepped forward, the light following her. "Fake? You think death can be faked?" Her voice rang through the microphone left on the stage. "You pushed me to the edge and watched me fall, both of you." The crowd fell silent. Reporters whispered to each other, flashes lighting Sophia's calm, furious face. Lucas's voice broke. "You're alive." She met his eyes, cold, steady. "Alive, because you didn't get to finish the job." Isabella trembled. "You don't have proof." Sophia raised her hand. "The video is proof. The bruises, the scars, the years I spent learning to walk again. They're all proof. You can't bury truth forever." Security guards rushed forward, unsure who to protect. The event coordinator tried to cut the feed, but Martha had locked the system. The footage looped again. The shove, the fall, the scream. Guests backed away from the couple. A few whispered Lucas's name in disgust. Others filmed openly. Lucas reached toward Sophia, desperation in his eyes. "Please, let me explain." "Explain what?" She cut in. "How your mistress tried to kill me, or how you covered it up." He froze. The weight of guilt pressed on his shoulders like chains. Isabella snapped, voice shrill. "You think anyone will believe her? Look at her. She's unstable." Sophia's laughter was sharp, haunting. "Unstable? Maybe. But at least I can sleep at night without hearing screams in my head." A man from the press shouted, "Mrs. Reynolds, are you pressing charges?" Sophia turned toward the cameras, shoulders straight. "I don't need to press charges. The truth will do it for me." Police sirens echoed outside. Someone had already called them. Isabella's face twisted in panic. "Lucas, do something." Lucas just stared at Sophia. The realization hit him all at once. He had destroyed the only person who ever truly loved him. As officers entered the ballroom, flashes intensified. Reporters crowded forward, shouting questions. Sophia's voice rose above the noise. "You can't bury the truth with money or lies. You can kill a name, but you can't kill justice." The officers approached Isabella first. She screamed as they handcuffed her. "You'll regret this. You'll all regret this." Lucas tried to step forward, but two officers stopped him. He didn't resist. He just looked at Sophia one last time. "I thought you were gone," he whispered. "You made sure of it," she said quietly. "Now it's your turn to disappear." As Isabella was dragged away, Sophia turned to the cameras once more. Her voice trembled, but not with fear. "I came back to finish what they started. And tonight, I did." The world watched as the woman they thought was dead stood tall again, reborn, unstoppable, and finally free. By dawn, the story had spread like wildfire. Every major network in America carried the same headline: Sophia Reynolds alive, exposes husband and mistress for attempted murder. Her face was everywhere, not as a victim, but as a symbol. Sophia stood in her apartment, staring out at the city that once buried her. Below, news vans crowded the street, reporters shouting her name. Her phone buzzed endlessly, offers for interviews flooding in. But her thoughts were far away, back to Oregon, to the quiet cabin, to Noah's laughter. The door opened softly. Liam stepped in, carrying a newspaper. His expression was a mix of pride and worry. "You did it," he said. "They're both in custody." Sophia didn't turn around. "Isabella?" "She's denying everything," he said. "But the footage, the witnesses, she won't walk away from this." "And Lucas?" Liam hesitated. "He confessed to covering it up, said he didn't push you, but he didn't stop her either." Sophia closed her eyes, cowered to the end. Liam stepped closer. "You got your justice, Sophia. It's over." She shook her head slowly. "Justice isn't peace, Liam. I thought it would feel like victory, but all I feel is empty." He watched her, silent for a moment. "You've been fighting for so long, you don't remember what peace feels like." Sophia turned to him. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I forgot how to live." Liam reached into his coat pocket and handed her an envelope. Inside were photos: Noah playing on the Oregon beach, smiling, carefree. "Then start here," he said. "He's waiting." Sophia's eyes softened. "You brought him?" "He's with Martha downstairs," Liam said. "I thought you might want to go home." The word home caught her off guard. It didn't mean marble floors or gala lights anymore. It meant laughter, salt air, a boy who called her mama. Before she could respond, there was a knock at the door. A police officer stepped in. "Mrs. Reynolds, Mr. Lucas Reynolds has requested to see you before his transfer. It's your choice." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "I'll go." At the station, Lucas sat behind a glass wall, hands cuffed, eyes hollow. When Sophia entered, he lifted his head slowly. "You look different," he said weakly. "I am different," she replied. "Death tends to change people." He winced. "I didn't mean for it to happen that way. You thought you'd be free," she interrupted. "And you are, Lucas, free from everything that ever made you human." He lowered his head. "I don't expect forgiveness." "You won't get it," she said. "But I'll thank you for one thing." He looked up, confused. "What?" "For teaching me how strong I can be." She stood, turning toward the door. Lucas pressed his hand to the glass. "Sophia?" She stopped. "You had your chance to say my name when I was still breathing." Then she walked away, leaving him to the silence he created. Behind her, Lucas's voice broke, but Sophia didn't look back. The past was over. The future was finally hers. The city never truly slept, but that night, for the first time in years, Sophia did. No nightmares, no falling, no screams, just quiet. When morning came, she woke to sunlight spilling through the curtains and the faint hum of the street below. The news still blared on every station, her name, her story, her victory, but she didn't turn on the TV. The world already knew the ending it wanted. What mattered now was writing her own. A soft knock came at the door. She opened it to find Liam holding 2 cups of coffee and a paper bag. "Breakfast," he said. "Don't worry, I bribed the reporters with donuts to get up here." She smiled, a real one this time. "You're good at this hero thing." "Occupational habit," he said, stepping inside. "You look lighter." "I feel like I can breathe again," she admitted, taking a sip of coffee. "But it's strange. I've waited so long for justice that now, without the fight, I almost don't know what to do." "Then start with small things," Liam said. "Eat breakfast, call your son, live." At the mention of Noah, her eyes softened. "He's safe with Martha for now. I didn't want him caught in all the noise, but I'll bring him home soon. He deserves quiet." "We both do." Liam nodded. "You built your whole world on surviving, Sophia. Now you get to build it on living." She looked out the window, at the sun breaking through the fog over Los Angeles. "Do you think it's really over?" "For them? Yes," he said. "For you, it's just beginning." Later that day, Sophia stood by the courthouse steps as reporters shouted questions. Cameras clicked, but she spoke clearly, every word measured. "I didn't come back for revenge," she said. "I came back for truth. For every woman who's been silenced, for every survivor who was told she was too broken to rise. You are not broken. You're rebuilding." The crowd fell quiet. Her voice wavered just once as she added, "And to my son, if you ever see this one day, know that your mother didn't fall. She learned to fly. Applause rippled through the crowd. Some wept, others simply watched, stunned by the woman who had defied death and shame and power. That evening, Sophia drove north. The Pacific shimmered beside her as the city lights faded in the rearview mirror. Hours later, she reached Oregon. The cabin stood where she had left it, framed by pines and sea spray. Martha stood on the porch, holding Noah in her arms. The moment he saw his mother, he ran toward her, shouting, "Mama!" Sophia knelt, gathering him close, his little arms wrapped around her neck, grounding her more than any victory ever could. Liam joined them, leaning against the railing, smiling quietly. "Home," Sophia whispered, breathing in the ocean air. Finally home. Behind them, the horizon glowed with sunset. Gold and crimson, the colors of endings and beginnings. For the first time in years, Sophia wasn't running toward justice. She was walking toward peace. The Oregon air smelled like pine and rain, clean and sharp, the opposite of everything Sophia had left behind in Los Angeles. She thought the peace would be enough. She thought silence would mean freedom. But some ghosts refused to stay buried. 3 weeks after the trial, a letter arrived. No return address. Just her name written in shaky ink. She almost threw it away until she recognized the handwriting. Lucas Reynolds. Sophia sat at the table, the ocean rumbling beyond the window, and opened it with trembling fingers. "Sophia," the letter began, "there aren't enough words for what I did. Every morning I wake up knowing I deserve the cell I'm in. I don't ask for forgiveness. I only ask that you know one thing. I didn't push you. I should have stopped her, Isette, but I didn't. I told myself I was protecting our future, but all I did was destroy it." She paused, her throat tight. "I lost everything. The company, the money, the world that made me feel powerful. But I lost you long before that. You were the best thing I ever had, and I was too blind to see it. They call me a monster, and maybe they're right, but I'll spend the rest of my life living with what I've done. If you ever find peace, I hope it's somewhere I can't touch it. I don't deserve to be part of it. Lucas." The paper blurred through her tears. Liam found her on the porch later that afternoon, the letter folded on the table. "You read it," he said quietly. She nodded, eyes distant. "He says he didn't push me." "Do you believe him?" Sophia thought about it. "It doesn't matter. He watched." "That's enough." Liam sat beside her. "You don't owe him anything. Not anger, not forgiveness." She sighed, watching the waves crash against the rocks. "I don't forgive him, but I also don't hate him anymore. Hate kept me alive when I needed it. Now it just keeps me chained." They sat in silence for a while, the wind whispering through the trees. Finally, Liam spoke. "You know, peace isn't the absence of pain. It's learning to breathe through it." Sophia smiled faintly. "You sound like a doctor again," he grinned. "Old habits." That night, after Noah fell asleep, Sophia walked down to the beach. The tide was low, the sand cold beneath her bare feet. She held the letter in her hand, the ink smudged from her tears. "Goodbye, Lucas," she whispered, and let it fall into the waves. The paper drifted away, swallowed by the sea that had once nearly taken her life. She stood there until the horizon faded into darkness, the ocean murmuring its eternal lullaby. Behind her, the cabin lights glowed softly, warm and safe. She turned back, her steps slow but steady. For the first time, every movement felt light, not because she had forgotten, but because she had finally let go. The sea had once been her grave, but tonight it was her witness, and her absolution. Morning sunlight spilled across the kitchen, catching the dust in soft golden swirls. Noah sat at the table, legs swinging, crayons scattered across a coloring book. He was 5 now, bright, curious, endlessly asking questions. Today, though, his question was one Sophia had always feared. "Mama," he said, looking up from his drawing, "where's my dad?" Sophia froze, the spoon in her hand hovering above a pot of oatmeal. For years she'd known this moment would come, but the words still cut like glass. She turned slowly, forcing a gentle smile. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" He shrugged, serious in the way only children could be. "Other kids have dads. Liam takes me fishing, but he's not my dad, right?" Sophia knelt beside him, brushing a lock of dark hair from his forehead. His eyes, Lucas's eyes, watched her, waiting for truth. "No, baby," she said softly. "Liam's not your dad, but he's someone who loves you very much." Noah frowned. "So, where's my real dad?" Sophia hesitated. The ocean outside crashed against the shore, its rhythm steady, almost comforting. "Your father made some bad choices," she said carefully. "He hurt people, And he hurt me. Did he hurt you because you couldn't walk? Noah asked, innocent but sharp. Her breath caught. She'd never told him about the fall, but he had seen her scars, her braces, the pain that came and went like the tide. She reached for his small hand. Yes, she whispered. A long time ago he did something very wrong, and I got hurt. But I got better, and I got you. He studied her face as if trying to understand a grown-up world built on secrets. Is he sorry? Sophia thought of the letter now buried beneath the sea. I think he is, she said finally, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. Noah was quiet for a moment. Do you hate him? The question hit harder than she expected. She took a deep breath. I used to, but hate is heavy, Noah. It's like trying to swim with rocks in your pockets. One day, I decided to let them go. He nodded slowly, his small brow furrowed in thought. So you forgave him? Not exactly, she said. Forgiving isn't forgetting. It just means I stopped letting him decide how I feel. He smiled a little. You're strong, Mama. Sophia's throat tightened. No, baby, I just didn't have a choice. But you'll always have one. You'll choose kindness and courage and love. That's what makes you stronger than both of us. Noah's eyes brightened. Can we go to the beach today? Sophia laughed softly, wiping a tear from her cheek. Of course we can. Later they stood by the water, the wind tugging at their hair. Noah ran ahead, shouting with joy. Sophia watched him, her heart full. The ocean that once swallowed her now shimmered in the sun, no longer her enemy, but her mirror. And as her son's laughter echoed across the waves, Sophia finally understood. Survival wasn't the end of her story. Love was. Hundreds of miles south, in a cold gray cell at the California State Correctional Facility for Women, Isabella Monroe Reynolds sat staring at the wall. The once perfect blonde curls were gone, replaced by dull hair tied back in a knot. Her manicured hands were now rough, her nails bitten to the quick. 3 months had passed since the gala. The world had moved on, but Isabella couldn't. Every night, she woke screaming, haunted by the image of Sophia's face, alive, unbroken, triumphant. A guard knocked on the bars. You've got a visitor. Isabella blinked. Who? Woman, said her name's Carter. Her stomach twisted. Carter. That name still carried a sting. When Sophia entered the visiting room, everything went still. No guards spoke, no doors slammed. The two women faced each other through the glass, reflections overlapping like mirrors of past and present. You look different, Isabella said finally, her voice brittle. Sophia's expression was calm, almost kind. So do you, Isabella forced a smirk. Come to gloat? Enjoy the show? No, Sophia said softly. I came to understand. Understand what? How someone could hate enough to kill, Sophia replied. You had everything, Isabella. Money, beauty, a man willing to destroy his soul for you. Why wasn't it enough? Isabella laughed bitterly. Because it was never about him. It was about you. The way people looked at you, admired you, pitied you, loved you. You were untouchable. Even broken, you had something I couldn't fake. Sophia's gaze didn't waver. So you decided to take it? I decided to win, Isabella snapped. And I did, until you crawled back from hell. Sophia leaned forward slightly. No, Isabella, I didn't crawl. I walked. For a moment, Isabella said nothing. Then her voice cracked. Do you ever think about that night? About how close I was to getting away with it? Every day, Sophia said quietly. And I thank God I didn't die, because if I had, you'd still be smiling in some magazine pretending to be me. Isabella's hands trembled. Do you think prison scares me? No, Sophia said. I think you scare yourself, because for the first time you can't lie to anyone, not even to the mirror. Isabella looked away, her jaw tight. You think this makes you a hero? You think you're better than me? Sophia stood slowly, her eyes steady. No, I'm not better. I just chose to live. She placed her hand on the glass, a gesture of closure, not forgiveness. You buried me once, but I want you to remember this, Isabella. When you pushed me off that cliff, you didn't end my life. You began it. For the first time, Isabella's facade cracked. Tears slid down her cheeks, carving through the mask of arrogance she'd worn for years. Sophia turned and walked away without another word. The door closed behind her with a soft, final click. In her cell, Isabella sank to the floor, whispering to the emptiness, she won. And for the first time in her life, the woman who thought she owned everything finally understood what losing everything truly meant. Spring arrived early on the Oregon coast, painting the cliffs with wildflowers and mist. The sea, once cruel and unforgiving, now shimmered beneath soft sunlight. Sophia stood on the porch of her cabin, her home, and breathed deeply. The salt air no longer carried memories of terror. It carried peace. Inside, Noah ran through the living room, wooden airplanes buzzing in his hands. "Mama, look, I'm flying!" Sophia laughed, catching him mid-run. "Careful, pilot, no crashing in the living room." He grinned, wrapping his small arms around her neck. His warmth grounded her. Everything she'd endured, every fall, every scar, had led her to this moment. Liam entered, holding a stack of mail. "Looks like the world hasn't forgotten you," he said with a teasing smile. She raised an eyebrow. "Fan letters or lawsuits?" "Neither," he said. "Invitations, talk shows, book deals, women's organizations. They all want you to tell your story." Sophia took the envelopes, flipping through them. "They don't want my story, Liam. They want my pain packaged for entertainment." He leaned against the counter. "So tell it your way. You've spent years surviving their version. Maybe it's time the world heard yours." Sophia looked at him for a long moment. "You really think anyone wants to hear about forgiveness?" Liam's voice softened. "They don't know they need it yet." Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sophia sat at her desk with her laptop open. She began to type. Not an interview, not a confession, but a letter. "To every woman who has ever been silenced," she wrote, "you are not broken. They may have taken your voice, but not your story. You can rebuild. You can rise." Her fingers moved steadily across the keys, the words flowing like waves. She wrote about pain, about motherhood, about standing again when the world said she couldn't. She wrote about the cost of truth and the power of letting go. When she finished, she read it aloud to Liam and Noah. Her son sat cross-legged on the rug, eyes wide. "That's about you, Mama?" Sophia smiled. "It's about us, about what we survived." "Are we famous now?" he asked proudly. Liam laughed. "You already are, buddy." Sophia reached out and tousled Noah's hair. "Famous doesn't matter. What matters is what we do with it." A few days later, she sent the letter to a women's foundation under one condition. It had to be published anonymously. She didn't want applause. She wanted impact. Weeks passed, and the letter spread across the internet like wildfire. Women around the world began sharing it, calling it the Phoenix Manifesto. No one knew who wrote it, but they felt it. Every word born from truth. Sophia watched quietly as her message traveled further than she ever could. That night, she stood outside under a sky full of stars. Liam joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "You did it," he murmured. "You turned pain into something beautiful." Sophia rested her head against his shoulder, the waves whispering below. For the first time, her life wasn't about what she'd lost, but about everything she had rebuilt from the ashes. The email came early on a Tuesday morning. Sophia had just finished helping Noah with his schoolwork when the notification chimed. The subject line read, "From the National Women's Empowerment Conference, invitation to keynote." She almost deleted it, assuming it was another interview request, until she read the first line. "Your anonymous letter changed lives. We'd be honored if you would share your story in your own voice." Sophia sat back, heart pounding. She hadn't expected her words to travel that far, to spark something bigger than revenge or redemption. Her story had taken flight without her name, and maybe that was exactly how it was meant to be. Liam found her at the table, staring at the screen. "Another invitation?" he asked with a smile. "This one's different," she said, turning the laptop toward him. He read quietly, then looked up. "You should do it." "I don't know," she murmured. "I spent years trying to forget who I was, and standing on a stage, telling strangers, it feels like opening old wounds." Liam reached across the table and took her hand. "Maybe that's how healing really starts, by letting others see the scars and know they can survive too." She exhaled slowly, nodding. "Then I guess it's time." 2 weeks later, Sophia stood backstage at a convention center in New York City. The auditorium beyond the curtain was filled with hundreds of women, leaders, survivors, dreamers. She smoothed the skirt of her navy dress, steadying her breath. When her name was announced, the applause was thunderous. She walked onto the stage, each step measured and sure. No brace, no wheelchair, just strength. The lights dimmed slightly. Her voice, calm but powerful, carried through the room. 3 years ago, the world believed I was dead," she began. "And for a while I was. Not in body, but in spirit. I was erased, replaced, forgotten. but something inside me refused to stay silent. That voice, faint as it was, pulled me back. The audience hung on every word. Some wiped tears. Others nodded, as if seeing themselves reflected in her story. I learned that surviving isn't just about breathing, Sophia continued. It's about fighting for your truth, even when no one believes you. It's about choosing to rise when the world tells you to disappear. Her voice broke slightly as she said, I once fell from a cliff. I thought it was the end, but it wasn't the fall that defined me. It was what I did after I hit the ground. Applause erupted. The women stood, cheering through their tears. Sophia smiled, her chest tight with emotion. Don't let anyone tell you that your story is over. Sometimes, the ending is just the beginning, written in a different language. When the event ended, reporters called her the Phoenix Woman. Later that night, Sophia stood by her hotel window, looking out over the glowing city. The nickname didn't bother her. It fit. She had burned, she had fallen, and she had risen, stronger, brighter, and finally free. The Oregon coast was quiet again when Sophia returned home from New York. The conference had changed her. She could feel it in her heartbeat, steady and light for the first time in years. But there was one thing she had yet to face. The letter. It sat inside her desk drawer, sealed in cream-colored paper, written long ago on a night filled with fear and fire. The letter she had addressed to Liam before the gala, just in case she didn't make it back. If you're reading this, it means I've gone too far, or not far enough. She pulled it out, her fingers trembling slightly. Liam entered the room, wiping his hands on a towel. What's that? My goodbye, she said softly. He frowned. You never sent it? No. I wrote it when I thought revenge was all I had left. I think I need to read it now, just to remember who I was. He nodded and sat beside her as she carefully unfolded the paper. The ink had faded slightly, but every word still carried the weight of her old pain. She began to read aloud. Liam, if I don't come back, promise me you'll tell Noah that his mother fought for him. Tell him that courage doesn't mean not being afraid. It means doing what's right, even when you are. And tell him that if I die, I finally stopped running from what was done to me. Sophia's voice wavered, but she kept going. Sometimes I wonder if forgiveness is just another word for surrender. But maybe someday I'll understand that it's not about freeing them, it's about freeing myself. Her throat closed as she reached the last lines. Thank you for saving me when I didn't want to be saved. You gave me life when all I wanted was revenge. If I survive, I promise I'll learn to live again, not as the woman they broke, but as the woman I was meant to be. Silence filled the room when she finished. The only sound was the distant crash of waves. Liam looked at her, eyes glistening. You kept that part of you alive, even when you thought you couldn't. She smiled through her tears. I didn't write this letter to you, Liam. Not really. I wrote it to the version of me that was still trapped back there, on that cliff, in that fall. Liam reached out, taking her hand gently. So what do you want to do with it now? Sophia folded the letter again, her voice calm. Burn it. Not out of anger, out of release. Together, they stepped outside. The sun was setting, the horizon glowing gold and rose. Sophia lit the edge of the paper and watched as the flames curled the words into smoke. The ashes drifted upward, carried away by the wind. When it was gone, she whispered, Goodbye to the woman who needed revenge. Hello to the one who knows peace. Liam slipped an arm around her shoulders as they watched the last spark fade. The past had finally burned away, and in its place, only light remained. A year later, the Oregon coast was everything Sophia had once dreamed of. Quiet, wild, and endless. The ocean that had nearly swallowed her now felt like home, a reminder that even the fiercest storms could lead her back to shore. It was early morning. Mist clung to the cliffs, and the air smelled of pine and sea salt. Sophia stood on the porch with a cup of coffee, wrapped in a soft gray sweater. Inside, Noah was building a sandcastle out of cereal boxes, his laughter echoing through the small cabin. Liam was fixing the leaky faucet again, humming an old song under his breath. For the first time in her life, Sophia didn't feel like she was surviving. She was living. Her phone buzzed on the table. An email from a publisher. Your memoir proposal has been approved. We believe your story will help millions. She smiled faintly. For years, she had let others tell her story. The media, the courts, the whispers of strangers. But this time, every word would come from her. No dramatization, no tragedy for profit, just truth. She sat at her desk by the window and began typing the first sentence. I died once, not in body but in spirit. And then I learned that sometimes death is the only way a woman can be reborn. The words flowed easily like the tide. She wrote about love, betrayal, the cruelty of silence, and the strength it took to rise. She wrote about the nights she almost gave up, and the mornings she forced herself to keep breathing. She wrote about Noah, her greatest reason to live. Hours passed unnoticed. When she finally stopped, the sky outside had turned pink with evening light. Liam leaned in the doorway, watching her quietly. You're doing it, he said softly. She smiled without turning. For every woman who ever thought she couldn't. He crossed the room and kissed her temple. You already changed lives, Sophia. This will just remind the world why. Noah ran in, holding a paper airplane. Mama, look, it flies! Sophia laughed, catching it as it soared across the room. It does, baby. Just like us. That night, after Noah was asleep, Sophia and Liam walked down to the beach. The moonlight painted the waves silver. They stood in the surf, hand in hand, listening to the water whisper around their ankles. Do you ever think about going back? Liam asked. She shook her head. I went back once, and that was enough. My life isn't there anymore. He smiled. Good. Sophia looked out at the horizon, her reflection shimmering in the dark water. For so long I thought my story ended at the cliff, but now I see it was only the beginning. A soft breeze lifted her hair, carrying her words into the night. Sophia Reynolds had fallen, risen, and forgiven. Not because she had to, but because she finally understood that freedom isn't found in revenge, but in rewriting your own ending. So that's how our story ends, or maybe how it truly begins. You're still here, right? If you've stayed with us until this moment, something in Sophia's journey must have touched your heart. Maybe it's the reminder that pain doesn't have to define you. It can refine you. Like the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, the obstacle is the way. What tried to destroy Sophia became the very thing that made her stronger, wiser, freer. And maybe that's true for you too. No matter what you've been through, you can rise again. Not by erasing the past, but by owning it. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about becoming whole despite the cracks. If this story spoke to you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs hope, and don't forget to subscribe. Together, we'll keep finding strength, even in the storms.